The box was empty. That's the first thing my daughter noticed. Not the silver wrapping paper. Not the white ribbon. Not the way every adult in the room suddenly went quiet watching her open it. Just empty. Interesting thing about humiliation. Children recognize cruelty faster than adults do. Adults search for explanations first. Children feel the truth immediately. My 8-year-old daughter sat cross-legged on my mother's living room carpet on Christmas Eve, holding an empty gift box in both hands, while my family watched her realize she had been invited into the joke instead of the celebration. Then my mother laughed. Actually laughed. And across the room? My sister lifted her wine glass and said the sentence that finally broke something permanent inside me. Worthless runs in the bloodline. Interesting, honestly. Because some families don't inherit traditions. They inherit targets. Nobody stopped her. Not my uncle. Not my cousins. Not even my father. Though the look on his face told me he finally understood exactly what kind of people he'd spent 14 years protecting. My daughter didn't cry immediately. That part mattered. She checked the box twice first. Like maybe she'd done something wrong opening it. Like maybe the real gift had fallen underneath the tissue paper somehow. Interesting thing about emotionally neglected children. They assume confusion before cruelty. Her little fingers moved the white tissue carefully aside. Nothing. She looked at the tag again. Her name. Her grandmother's handwriting. Then she looked up slowly, trying to understand why the room suddenly felt colder than before. Interesting, honestly. Because betrayal feels physical long before people have language for it. I sat behind her on the couch with one hand resting on her shoulder. Steady. Completely steady. Not because I wasn't angry. Because I was. Furious enough to split the room in half. But anger without control is just another performance. And I had spent my entire life watching my family weaponize performances. Huge difference. My name is Dana Hensley. I'm 33 years old. Estate attorney. Trust litigation. Probate disputes. The kind of lawyer wealthy families hire right before siblings stop speaking to each other forever. Interesting thing about my profession. Spending years watching inheritance wars teaches you exactly how cruelty behaves once money enters the room. And my family? They had been rehearsing this war for years. Long before Christmas Eve. Long before the empty box. Long before my daughter became old enough to understand what exclusion looked like. Interesting, honestly. Because toxic families don't suddenly become cruel. They become comfortable enough to stop hiding it. The call came 3 weeks earlier. Tuesday afternoon. Rain against my office windows. Client files spread across my desk. My father's name flashing across my phone screen. Walter Hensley almost never called. Letters sometimes. Brief ones. Practical ones. But calls meant something had shifted. Interesting thing about emotionally silent fathers. Their urgency sounds small because they've spent decades training themselves not to need anything. His voice sounded thinner than I remembered. Come home for Christmas, sweetheart. Long pause. Bring Kaya. I didn't answer immediately. Because 6 years is a long time to stay away from somewhere that keeps proving you were right to leave. Interesting, honestly. Because estrangement rarely begins with one dramatic event. Usually, it's death by accumulation. One humiliation. One dismissal. One holiday where your child notices they weren't included. Until eventually staying away becomes emotional survival instead of rebellion. The last Christmas I spent in my parents' house. My mother seated my daughter at a folding card table in the kitchen. Kaya was 4 years old. My sister Brooke's children sat in the dining room with the adults. Real plates. Candles. Conversation. Meanwhile, my daughter ate chicken nuggets beside the washing machine because the main table was crowded. Interesting thing about exclusion. Children always understand hierarchy even when adults pretend they don't. Kaya didn't complain. That's the part that destroyed me afterward. She just smiled politely and thanked my mother for the food like being separated from the family made perfect sense. Interesting, honestly. Because little girls learn how to make themselves emotionally convenient frighteningly early. But my father said please. And Walter Hensley did not say please. Not casually. Not ever. He told me he was tired. Not sleep tired. The deeper kind. The kind that settles into old men when they quietly start counting how many Christmases they have left. His heart had been failing for 2 years. Cardiologists using words like management and quality of life. The kind of phrases doctors choose when they need families to understand reality gently. So I booked 2 tickets. Packed Kaya's winter coat. Her colored pencils. Her favorite sweater with the tiny fox stitched on the sleeve. And told myself one dinner wouldn't kill us. Interesting thing about hope. Sometimes it survives long after intelligence gives up. On the flight, Kaya asked for the lake story again. Tell me about Grandpa's tackle box. She'd heard it at least 100 times. Still wanted it. Interesting, honestly. Because children ask for the stories that make people sound safest. So I told it again. The green metal tackle box. The lake house. My brother Danny teaching me to fish off the dock while our father burned pancakes inside because he refused to admit he couldn't cook. How the lake turned gold in September when sunset hit the water just right. Kaya listened with her chin resting on the airplane tray table, smiling softly like she could see it. And for a few dangerous minutes, I almost forgot how the story actually ended. Interesting thing about memory. It edits grief temporarily whenever love gets loud enough. My brother Danny died 14 years ago. 3 days before Christmas. 19 years old. Black ice on Route 12. Guardrail. Engine cold by the time paramedics arrived. The kind of tragedy small towns absorb permanently into their identity. Interesting, honestly. Because some deaths don't just kill people. They reorganize entire families afterward. My mother never recovered. Not really. People say grief changes someone. That's incomplete. Grief reveals them too. After Danny died, my mother rebuilt the family around the loss like a house built around a collapsed wall. Everything tilted. Brooke became the surviving daughter who stayed close. Sunday dinners. Church brunches. Matching holiday pajamas for her children. The dependable daughter. Meanwhile, I became the daughter who left. The daughter away at college. The daughter not home when tragedy happened. Interesting thing about blame. Families assign it wherever it hurts least emotionally. My mother repeated the story constantly. Dana wasn't here when it mattered. Over and over. At church. At birthdays. At holidays. Eventually, it stopped sounding like grief and started sounding like doctrine. Interesting, honestly. Because repeated lies eventually become family tradition if nobody interrupts them. The house looked beautiful when we arrived Christmas Eve. Of course it did. My mother treated holidays like competitive theater. Lights in every window. Pine garlands on the staircase. Cinnamon candles burning so heavily they almost covered the smell of old carpet underneath. The kind of home magazine photographers would adore. Interesting thing about appearances. Beautiful rooms can still raise emotionally dangerous people. My mother stood in the foyer greeting relatives when we walked in. She hugged my cousins. Kissed Brooke's children. Told everyone how tall they'd gotten. Then she looked at me. and gave a polite nod. Not a hug. Not warmth. Just acknowledgement. The same expression people give accountants dropping off paperwork. Interesting, honestly. Because some mothers learn how to weaponize emotional restraint with surgical precision. Kaya squeezed my hand silently. She already understood enough to notice. That broke my heart more than if she'd asked questions. The gift table sat beside the tree. And honestly, you could understand the entire family structure just by looking at it. Madison's gift stacked almost to her knees. Tyler's pile nearly as large. Brooke's wrapped in gold paper. My father's in plaid. And at the very far end, half hidden behind the tree skirt, sat one tiny silver box with Kaya's name written across the tag. Silver paper. White ribbon. Small enough to hold socks. Interesting thing about symbolism. Cruel people rarely realize how obvious they are from the outside. Above the fireplace sat my father's snow globe. Tiny cabin beside a frozen lake. The last gift Danny ever bought him. $3 from a gas station. My father treasured it like a museum artifact. Kaya spotted it instantly. Grandpa, is that the lake? And suddenly, for 30 seconds, the house sounded almost normal. My father crossed the room slowly. Heart medication making his movements careful now. He shook the snow globe gently while Kaya watched the white flakes swirl. That's the lake. Was the water really gold? Only in September. She laughed. He laughed too. And standing in the kitchen doorway watching them, I noticed something terrifying. My father looked guilty. Not sad. Not nostalgic. Guilty. Interesting, honestly. Because old men nearing the end of their lives start looking directly at the things they failed to protect. Old men nearing the end of their lives start looking directly at the things they failed to protect. Interesting thing about guilt. It softens people long before it changes them. Kaya leaned against my father's side studying the snow globe while the rest of the house performed Christmas around us. My mother directing people toward appetizers. Brooke uncorking wine. Relatives laughing too loudly at stories nobody would remember tomorrow. And right in the center of it all, my father looked like a man already grieving something that hadn't happened yet. Interesting, honestly. Because regret arrives quietly in old men. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just small pauses between sentences. Longer stares at photographs. Hands lingering on objects tied to people they failed to protect. Interesting, honestly. Because guilt ages people faster than time ever does. Kaya whispered something into my father's ear beside the fireplace. He bent down carefully to hear her. I made you something. Her voice sounded excited. But you have to wait until presents. My father smiled then. Real smile. Not the tired, polite kind he'd been wearing all evening. And for one dangerous second, I almost believed the night might survive itself. Interesting thing about hope. It returns fastest right before disappointment. Dinner preparation inside my mother's house had always operated like theater rehearsal. Carol Hensley did not cook. She directed. Brooke sliced vegetables where Carol pointed. Craig opened wine bottles. Everyone moved around my mother like staff orbiting management. Interesting, honestly. Because controlling women rarely ask for obedience directly. They structure the room until obedience becomes automatic. Kaya asked if she could help. Brooke barely looked up from the counter. You can stay out of the way, sweetie. Out of the way. Interesting thing about exclusion. People soften cruelty with pet names when they want witnesses to overlook it. I pulled Kaya beside me and handed her a stack of napkins. She folded each one carefully into tiny triangles. Proud of every single one. Nobody acknowledged them. Not one person. Interesting, honestly. Because emotionally neglected children become invisible through repetition. My mother plated appetizers with military precision. 8 crostini for the adults. 4 for Madison. 4 for Tyler. Then she walked away. No plate for Kaya. No hesitation either. That part mattered. Interesting thing about cruelty. The practiced kind always moves automatically. I slid 2 crostini from my plate onto Kaya's napkin without saying anything. She ate quietly, swinging her legs beneath the oversized stool. Brooke leaned against the counter sipping wine. Still doing the lawyer thing? Tone casual. Dismissive enough to sting anyway. Must be depressing. I folded another napkin. It pays well. Barely, I'm sure. Interesting, honestly. Because insecure people always minimize work they secretly resent. Greg walked into the kitchen carrying printer paper. Tall. Broad shoulders. The kind of man who spoke confidently about subjects he barely understood. He stopped mid-sentence when he saw me. The insurance forms. Pause. Brooke shot him a quick look. Greg corrected immediately. Right. Insurance. Interesting thing about liars. They panic at details first. I said nothing. But I filed it away. Quietly. Completely. The same way I catalogued witness contradictions during depositions. Interesting, honestly. Because people underestimate silent women constantly. After dinner, my father touched my elbow gently. Come with me. We stepped into the garage. Cold air. Motor oil. Cedar wood. The smell of my childhood sitting untouched beneath dust in winter. Interesting thing about garages. Men store the parts of themselves they can't discuss inside them. The old workbench remained exactly the same. Tools hanging from pegs. Coffee tins full of nails. And above the shelf, the green metal tackle box. Danny's initials scratched into the lid crookedly with a fishhook when he was 12. My father sat slowly on the old stool. Hands rubbing together nervously. And suddenly, he looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. Interesting, honestly. Because authority disappears quickly once shame finally surfaces. I put things in order, Dana. He stared at the tackle box instead of me. The house. The lake property. Medical decisions. Long pause. You're the only one I trust with it. I felt the room tilt slightly. Not from shock. Recognition. Huge difference. Interesting thing about estate attorneys. We recognize confession long before people realize they're making one. I should have done right by you years ago. His voice cracked. I let your mother build a story about you that wasn't true. Silence filled the garage. Not awkward silence. Honest silence. The rarest kind inside families. Interesting, honestly. Because truth sounds strangely calm after years of manipulation. I told myself keeping peace was the same thing as doing the right thing. He wiped at his eyes angrily. Embarrassed by the tears. Men his age were taught grief should stay hidden unless someone dies. But guilt? Guilt leaks anyway. Interesting thing about weak fathers. They often mistake passivity for kindness until the damage becomes irreversible. I'm sorry, sweetheart. There it was. The apology I stopped expecting years ago. Late. Incomplete. Still real. I didn't tell him it was okay. Because it wasn't. But I placed my hand on his shoulder. And for a moment, the garage became the only honest room in the entire house. When we walked back inside, the atmosphere had shifted. Not visibly. Strategically. Interesting thing about manipulative families. The room changes emotionally whenever they think control is close. My mother sat near the fireplace holding court. Wine glass balanced elegantly between manicured fingers. Brooke beside her on the love seat. Craig scrolling through something on his phone. And right there on the side table near my father's chair sat a thin manila folder. Interesting, honestly. Because legal paperwork always looks harmless before it destroys someone's life. The folder wasn't there before dinner. That mattered immediately. I sat beside Aunt Ruth on the couch while Kaya colored quietly near the tree. My mother waited for a conversational lull. Of course she did. Carol Hensley never launched attacks without audience attention fully secured first. Then she smiled toward the room. Walter and I have been discussing the lake house. There it was. Interesting thing about inheritance fights. They usually begin disguised as practical conversations. It's too much upkeep now. Taxes. Maintenance. Insurance. Her voice softened artificially. We think it should go to someone who'll actually use it. Then she looked directly at Brooke. The grandchildren who visit deserve memories there. Interesting, honestly. Because narcissistic mothers speak in coded language when they want cruelty to sound reasonable. Visit. Meaning Brooke's children. Not Kaya. Not me. The implication landed exactly where intended. Brooke nodded slowly like they'd rehearsed the moment privately beforehand. Greg crossed one ankle over the other, smiling faintly toward the carpet. My father stared at the snow globe above the fireplace and said nothing. That silence told me more than any argument could have. Interesting thing about coerced people. Their guilt becomes visible right before they're expected to surrender something important. The lake house wasn't just property. It was the last place my family had ever been whole. Danny caught his first base from that dock. I learned to swim there. My father taught us card games during thunderstorms while rain hammered the roof. And now? My mother planned to hand it to Brooke like a reward for loyalty. Interesting, honestly. Because some parents distribute inheritance emotionally long before paperwork exists. I didn't argue. Not yet. That part surprised my mother. I could tell. She expected resistance. Emotion. Defensiveness. Instead, I sat quietly beside my daughter and watched. Interesting thing about courtroom training. Stillness unnerves manipulative people more than anger ever will. After dessert, Brooke announced it was time for the annual grandkid photo. Madison and Tyler rushed toward the tree automatically. Kaya stood too. Hopeful. Immediate. And God. That hope almost destroyed me. Interesting, honestly. Because children continue believing they belong long after adults start teaching them otherwise. Brooke adjusted Madison's sweater. Fixed Tyler's collar. Then glanced toward Kaya. Just the three of them, sweetie. 3 of them. Like my daughter had somehow miscounted herself. This is the grandkid's picture. She is a grandchild. My voice stayed calm. Level. Years of litigation training hiding the fury underneath. Brooke didn't even turn around. I mean the ones who are actually here every weekend. Interesting thing about exclusion. People always invent rules after deciding who deserves belonging first. She snapped the photo. Flash lighting the room briefly white. Kaya walked back toward me slowly. Didn't cry. Didn't ask questions. She simply climbed onto the couch beside me and made herself smaller. And honestly? That hurt worse than tears would've. Interesting thing about emotionally rejected children. Eventually they start minimizing themselves voluntarily to avoid rejection arriving louder later. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. And that's when my phone buzzed. Brooke had added me to a family group chat called Christmas Logistics. 3 messages visible immediately. Grocery list. Brunch timing. Then. One deleted notification preview that hadn't fully disappeared yet. Check the other chat. Interesting, honestly. Because people hiding something almost always leave evidence in transitions. People hiding something always leave evidence in transitions. Interesting thing about manipulation. The lie usually slips between conversations instead of inside them. I looked down at Brooke's group chat notification while Christmas music drifted through the living room behind me. Check the other chat. Deleted immediately afterward. But not fast enough. Interesting, honestly. Because digital mistakes expose people faster than guilt ever will. I locked my phone screen slowly. Kept my expression neutral. And suddenly, the entire evening rearranged itself inside my head. The folder beside my father's chair. Greg mentioning paperwork. My mother announcing the lake house in front of witnesses. The careful performance energy humming underneath every conversation all night. Interesting.